Okay, now you can all stop telling me to look at fairer watches. Here I am, knock it off you, and me, knock it off me, because fairer watches have been on my list for a long time. Maybe you know, I like colorful watches, fun watches, unpretentious, unaffordable watches, and what I saw and heard from other people is that fairer watches checked all of those boxes, some of my favorite boxes in fact. Fairer Universal is a small British company that started in 2015, and looking at its catalog, man, a lot of this stuff appeals to me. Colorful, playful but not goofy, and many actually look pretty elegant for as casual as they are. Not all of them to my eyes, but a lot of them. At the moment, it looks like the price range on fairer watches goes from $895 to $2,395. And these are watches from the two newest collection from Fairer. This white dial watch is the London from the Tonneau collection, and this chronograph is the Chalcot from the Chrono-Contempo collection. I had to look up videos of Brits pronouncing that word. Chalcot, isn't it? Let's start with the London Tonneau watch. This is one of 3 Tonneau watches named after a city: London, Milan, Paris. I like how each one is more differenter than just a dial color. The markers and the hands are different too. Tonneau is the case shape. That word refers to a watch with this elongated, almost rectangular case. That's in case you didn't know. I'm so sorry. So when I tell you this watch is 35 millimeters across, that doesn't mean it's small. I actually think it's pretty big. With a watch like this, or a rectangular watch like a Cartier tank, maybe the most important dimension is the length. 45 millimeters is the length of the Fairer Tonneau watches, and they're all about 10.6 millimeters thick. 20 millimeter lugs and a water resistance of 100 meters, which is a nice surprise on a watch that looks kinda dressy. The Tonneau is automatic using the Solida SW300-1, the Elaboré grade movement. It has 56 hours of power reserve. The Tonneau lists for $1,250 US, real US dollars, or 1,095 fake British dollars? Okay, now I'm gonna jump to some facts about the Chrono-Contempo watches. There are only 2 references of this collection, the mint Chalcot and the dark blue Portobello. 38.5 millimeters across, 44 millimeters long, 13.4 millimeters thick including the sapphire crystal. Like the Tonneau, 20 millimeter lugs and 100 meters of water resistance. The Chrono-Contempo uses the manually wound Solida SW510MB Elaboré grade movement with about 63 hours of power reserve. There are a few leather strap options for this watch or this integrated rubber strap. Regardless of the strap option you choose, the price for the Chrono-Contempo watches are $1,850 beautiful, infallible US dollars. Now let's answer the question you're all asking right now. 7 inches. My wrist is 7 inches around. And on my wrist, I find that the Tonneau wears the largest of the two, which is kinda weird because it's only 35 millimeters across, east to west. But I guess it is slightly longer than the chronograph, 45 millimeters versus 44 millimeters. And for some reason, I think the Tonneau watch feels thick, even though it's less than 11 millimeters. I think what's going on here is that for this case shape, I'm expecting a smaller watch. This is larger than many Tonneau shaped watches that I've tried, and you know what? I kinda like it. This kinda reminds me of a Cartier Santos 100, which sounds like a brand of cigarettes, but no, it was a beefier, sportier Santos that Cartier used to make. I kinda wish they still did. Now the Fairer doesn't really look like that watch, but with its dimensions and water resistance, there's something familiar here, and I'm into it. An unexpected boldness and sportiness for this watch. I also think of the 3 Tonneau watches, this one, this London, is the sportiest with the white dial and all the numerals present, but none of the Tonneaus have lume, which seems like a miss, especially on this London reference. The case finishing is really nice, a lot of details and executed well for the $1,200 price. I'm impressed. Now the chronograph doesn't have that same level of case finishing, but it does have a lot more going on overall. 38.5 millimeters in diameter, this is sweet. Even though this is called the Chrono-Contempo, this reminds me a lot of a vintage watch. The size is the first thing and it just feels and looks right. The narrow bezel is another part that feels vintage, at least it looks vintage, but the bezel insert is made of ceramic with lume inlays, so it's pretty modern. And I really like that it's a 12-hour bezel. That means that you can easily track a second time zone, which I do all the time, so I know when I'm supposed to pretend to be working. I'm just kidding, coworkers who found my YouTube channel. We love a good joke. Good times, you guys. The 13.4mm thickness is totally wearable with the rest of the case dimensions, and the watch doesn't feel heavy. It's especially comfortable on this rubber strap. This strap is super flexible and just the right amount of sticky, which is to say, just barely. Now, I want to talk about the dials, because I really like the dials on both watches. The London has concentric rectangles. I guess they're not rectangles, they're tonneaus. Concentric shapes that mirror the shape of the case, going all the way to the railroad chapter ring. The Chalcot has a texture of the main dial, with the subdials having a very fine circular guilloche. I did notice that it looks like the printing in the subdials is shifted to the left on this watch. Looks like someone didn't properly align the printing combobulator. That's kind of annoying, and hopefully this is just a one-off issue. The lume on the Chalcot is pretty good. The bezel lume is a nice touch, and I always love to see that. The movement of each watch is pretty good. The automatic uses the Sellita 300-1 Elaboré grade, and it isn't especially accurate, about 20 seconds per day, but I do like that it has 56 hours of power reserve, longer power reserve than many watches at this price with the 200-1 movement. The manually wound Sellita SW510M has a power reserve of up to 63 hours. It has a 30-minute counter at 3 o'clock and a 12-hour counter at 6 o'clock. Both movements have some special fairer finishing. The rotor weight on the automatic and the bridge on the manual. I think it's a bridge. I definitely know what I'm talking about. You can count on me. Fairer gives a 5-year warranty on movements in its watches, and that's cool, but like, do people actually keep watches for that long? Like, that's 5 times longer than anyone should keep a watch. Am I wrong about that? As for the prices, I think $1250 and $1850 in beautiful, all-powerful US dollars, that seems about right. You can find cheaper watches using both movements, and you can easily find more expensive watches using both movements. Now combine that with the details and the finishing and the water resistance, and I think the price is just about correct. These watches are really what I had hoped they'd be, and not having spent time with watches from Fairer, I just wasn't sure. And yeah, people spoke highly of them, but I know better than to trust people. I only trust my own impeccable eyes. They cannot be pecked. And I'm looking forward to seeing more watches from Fairer, especially the World Timer, which will be coming back in the spring of 2024. That could be the affordable World Timer I've been looking for. And since I don't have a clever conclusion to this video, I'll leave you with a terrible watch joke. How can you tell when your watch is hungry? It goes back 4 seconds.